First, though, the French May Festival is in full flood and featuring, among many other great artists, many sculptors. This week we spoke to two of them, including sculptor, painter, and conceptual artist Bernar Venet.
When you're a young artist, you just try to investigate and see what is interesting to do, what has not been thought, and you start to develop a sort of work. And one day you just realize that because you are using mathematics and there are diagrams in it, and those diagrams, of course, they are made with lines, you realize one day that this is becoming the subject matter without you wanting it. You just discover that this is your subject matter, and you find a way to develop this idea.
In the early 1960s, influenced by the new realists in Paris, Bernar Venet began to create sculptures out of cardboard. In 1966, on a trip to New York, he became inspired by minimalism and turned to creating work based on mathematics and scientific concepts. He moved there a year later. In the early 70s, he returned to Paris, focusing on teaching rather than creation. He began making art again in 1976. His indeterminate line series, variations of straight, curved or broken lines, came to life in the 1990s.
The line started to be in my work already in 1966 in those early diagrams of mathematics. But it's in 1976 and 77 that I realized the importance of line, because I was making those canvases, paintings with angles, with arcs, and then later on I got rid of the canvas and I kept only the subject matter, which was the arc or the straight line or the angle, and I started to make them in wood on the walls directly, floating on the walls. And later on, just because those reliefs in wood were starting to be more and more physical, thicker and thicker, that they just became sculptures. What you see is those straight lines leaning against the wall, and I push and everything is falling. That was the first idea. That's how I started to think about that. When I do the arcs, I usually make them in maquettes. Okay, I have a maquette and I put the arc and I go like bang, boom, and I push them like without trying to make a composition. And I make it once and twice and 3 times, and sometimes some are more interesting than others. When I say interesting, it means that they look more like a real collapse than others, They have a real disorder. The idea of the collapse, what I call effondrement in French, when the sculpture is, it's like arcs installed in a particular way, and suddenly there is an event that was unpredicted that makes the piece fall, a collapse like this, and I show it this way. There is a big one next to the museum, and I'm very pleased with that piece in particular.
7 of Bernar's monumental sculptures are currently being exhibited along the Chimsachoy waterfront, outside the Cultural Centre. His early paintings are also on show at the Desart Gallery.
I think that scientists always question what has been discovered. Artists should be doing the same. The function of the artist is to constantly question what he has been thinking, what I have been thinking myself, and what the others have been thinking, and question, how valid, how interesting everything in the past has been. There is so much to create, so much. People think that, oh my God, everything has been done in art. My answer is, yes, everything has been done, which has been done, but so much remains to be created that we have no time to feel comfortable with our ideas and what we have been doing.